I was just like, this has got to stop. So I said to them, I got to a point where I said, look, from this point onwards, do not contact me anymore about this transaction. I've been doing it up until now because I want to be helpful. But, you know, the buyer's really taking this. Go directly to my solicitor, okay? And my solicitor will update the seller's solicitor, and that's how this will get resolved. Happy 2024, guys. I am back. Welcome to the new year, guys. I've been away for a few months, I know, but I am back. I've got lots to share, so take a look at the timestamps to skip ahead to certain parts of this video because it's going to be a meaty one, guys. But 2023 was a hectic, chaotic, turbulent year. And I want to start off, guys, by saying straight up, thank you for still watching. The channel actually hasn't shrank, even though I've been away for 3 months, dealing with a few life events and challenges, but the channel hasn't shrank. So thank you for still watching. Thank you for still watching my face over the last few months. I really appreciate you guys. So thanks for continuing to support. So first up, why have I been away for the last few months? Guys, life has been hectic over the last part of 2023. We expanded our family last year, so everything that comes with that, sleepless nights, exhaustion, fatigue, and just generally making up parenthood as you go along. There's no instruction manual. That has been challenging. It's been a complete joy and blessing, but it's no church picnic, guys. So at times like that in life, you have to sort of readjust and rebalance your life, simplify life at times, and something has to give. In this case, it was social media for a season. I love doing this YouTube channel. I love doing TikTok. I love doing Instagram and social media and connecting with you guys and sharing knowledge, exchanging ideas, building my network. But, you know, family is more important. So in seasons like that, you just got to focus on strengthening your foundations, taking care of yourself and those around you, your family, your friends, etc. You know, that's just wisdom. That's how to manage your life wisely. I've also had a few random freak injuries. I've been in and out of hospital. I've been for scans to specialists. I've injured my chest, I've injured my back, I've injured my neck, all in the space of about 6-7 months, which was ridiculous, guys. I've changed job twice this year as well. So it has been a randomly turbulent, hectic year. Probably the most physically, mentally demanding year I've ever had. And through that, I've learned the absolute necessity of simplifying life, resting, self-care, managing your thought life, and just, you know, keeping things real simple and real manageable. Let me know in the comment section if you've ever had a year or a season or a period or a month like that, because I've certainly had that. So that's an update on my life. But let's get to property, guys. Let's talk about what has been happening in Hull, my most recent investment project. But when I left you last, I was in the process, okay, of purchasing a new buy-to-let property in Hull, which is in the northeast direction of the UK. So I completed the purchase of the Hull property back end of last year, which I'm of course delighted about. And if you're wondering why Hull, by the way, check out this video here or here explaining exactly why I chose Hull. In my personal opinion, it's an area of the UK with a lot of potential and still very much underpriced. And just to bring you up to speed, I contacted a local agent in Hull through my research, got in contact with them, they listed my new buy-to-let property, and within 2 weeks, guys, 2 weeks of listing it, I found a tenant, or my letting agent found a tenant. That's what I'm paying them for. I'm not looking to go through the process of finding tenants. That's what I pay the agent for. 2 weeks, guys. That tells you that this property, as it relates to Hull, is in a prime, high demand area of Hull. I actually did my own research and I thought it would rent out for around about $550 per month. But I was very pleased to hear that they came back to me and suggested, look, put it on for $595 per month. So that's round about an extra, you know, £550 extra per month that the property is going to bring in. It was above what I thought the rental would be in that area, and the demand is very high. So if there's ever an example or a case study in doing the research and picking a good area, this is it. Because when you pick in a good area, the demand's going to be there waiting for you, and it may even exceed your desired rental amount. So as things stand today, the tenant should be moving in this month, and that is a deal really well done, in my humble opinion. And just to give you a whirlwind update of how I got to this stage today with the tenant about to move in, started 6 months ago when basically I did a day trip to Hull and visited a bunch of properties on sale in the city in the course of the day. Check those videos out. I vlogged it in a 2-part video where I recorded all the viewings. I recorded my conversations with letting agents, with owners, how I viewed the house, and me basically wandering around the city of Hull. It was a really popular video, so check it out. I think it is pretty helpful, if I do say so myself. So what I did was I block booked the viewings the day before. I personally like to book at least 5 viewings if I'm going all the way up to a city or anywhere really to view properties. I like to fill the diary with them because inevitably, and this is in my personal experience, every single time I've gone to a city, there's been at least one viewing, okay, that has cancelled on the day or even the day before. In Hull, I had 2. I had one cancel on the way up there on the train. The agent decided to tell me on the way there, as I was on the train to Hull, that that property, an offer had been made on it and it was now coming off the market, which of course I was livid about, because if that was the only viewing that I had booked for the day, I would have already been on the train on the way up there. And I had a second one cancelled because they couldn't get the keys to get into the property. So block book at least 5, I'd say, and check the day before with the agent that the viewing is still on, and you know, whether someone's put an offer on in the last 12 to 24 hours and it's now off the market, okay? In order to do that, in order to choose those properties to view, I jumped in a lot of forums and I asked locals from the cities, like, where is a good place to live? What are the best areas of the city? What are the worst areas of the city? When you get on forums, local forums, like in this case a forum for Hull, and I've done this in all different areas and all different cities of the UK, people can't wait to give you their opinion on where the best and worst areas of the city are. Those are really popular discussion threads and posts, and I always get just a ton of information just by saying something along the lines of, I'm looking to move to the city, which I'm obviously not, but I'd like to know, as a person that's prospectively looking to live in a city, where is good and where is bad to live, and you'll get a lot of information. Then it's up to you to actually, you know, go through all that, go there and walk through these areas, walk it out, you know, go on foot if you can, as long as it's safe. Yeah, you don't want to be walking through, you know, some dodgy hood or just any hood in the UK. So like, know where you're going, get some background information, make sure it's all, you know, cool to be on your own there during the day, and just walk around. And then when you're there and then you're at these viewings, ask the agent just loads of questions. I'm sure I annoy agents, but I ask them everything I can about like the seller's situation, why they're selling, when they want to sell by, about the area. Do you know much about, the area in general? Where's popular?
City Council has done a lot of regeneration.
Yeah. You know, how much are properties selling for?
Properties tend to be a little bit cheaper in HU6 than HU5. Yeah, it's a bit more of a premium.
For above asking price, all of that. Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't. Doesn't matter, I'm asking, okay? So anyway, I made an offer that was accepted. I got it for £5,000 below the asking price, which I was very happy about. How did I get to that price? How did I get below? Why did I offer at that particular level that I was confident would be accepted despite it being below the asking price? There is a science to it, guys. Have a look at this. So if you've been watching my channel for long enough by now, you know that I am a spreadsheet nerd, and this is one of my many spreadsheets, right? What I did here basically was that I mined Rightmove for the prices of recently sold properties, roughly the same area I was looking at over the last 5 years. And these were the prices that I got over the particular year. So these were the prices, these were the properties, and these were the prices that were sold within a certain radius of the area I was looking at over the last 5 years. And as you can see, there's a range. So in 2019, you've got one for 52,000 and a half, 52,500, one for 75,000, and then a bunch was sold in 2022, ranging from 72,000 to 115,000. And they were all similar to the property I was looking at. I wanted to see the prices of 2-bed terraced houses. There was no use in me searching for the prices of, you know, 1-bed flats that were sold within a radius of what I was looking for, because it's not comparable. So here at the bottom is the average of all of these properties sold in that rough area over the last 5 years, £90,000. Now I was mindful that it was 2023 and the last property was sold a year ago in 2022. So you've got this average here of £90,000. You've got to factor in a rough estimate of growth over the last year. And for me, I was aware that the last 12 months had been quite a dire situation in the UK property market, but growth by that time was round about 2-3% when I was looking. So I applied that right to this, and I came to a figure of £92,500. And that was the science behind my offer. Of course, the property was listed for £97,500. So when I made the offer, I explained that, hey, look, I know it's listed for above this, but based on the comparables, I believe this is what it's worth. If the seller is happy to sell, I'm more than happy to move really quickly. Got my solicitor, got my mortgage lined up. I'm not in a chain. I'm happy to move quickly if they want to accept. And they accepted within a couple of days, which I was delighted about. But then came the whole process of actually buying the property, which end to end took 6 months. And guys, the seller was an absolute nightmare. They made the process really unbearable. So much so that the actual purchase almost fell through a couple of times. So my purchase of this buy-to-let property in a whole was hands down my most unpleasant, most unbearable property purchase that I've ever undertaken. Actually, no, that's a lie. It was the one in Liverpool that actually fell through, but that technically wasn't a purchase, it fell through. So this was a very close second in terms of experience, but in terms of a purchase, this was really something that I would not like to repeat again. Let me give you some context. So the seller, and this is really going to be the crux of why this whole process went the way it did. The seller was selling the property in whole, the buy-to-let property that I was buying, but they'd already purchased another property. They were moving house, essentially. So they had already purchased a new property and were paying a mortgage on that one. And they were selling the property that I was buying and still paying a mortgage on that one too. So they were paying 2 mortgages. And don't forget, you know, last year we were in the midst of the whole cost of living crisis. Interest rates were going through the roof. The cost of energy, the cost of food, the cost of doing anything really had done that basically. So our pockets were being attacked, yeah, by the economy. And in the midst of it, you got someone paying 2 mortgages. So as you can imagine, and I would be too if I'm, you know, going to be honest, I would want to get that property off of my hands and into the buyer's hand as soon as possible. I would want the buyer, if I was in the seller's position, to be moving ASAP. You know, I don't want to be paying 2 mortgages for any amount of time, okay? And I told you that the transaction took 6 months, so they were paying 2 mortgages for 6 months. But, you know, to be honest with you guys, that was the time scale that solicitors, property conveyancers were working to during that period. I did my own research on it, and, you know, that was about the average. I bought several other properties, and if I averaged it out, those took round about 4 months end to end. So this was longer, but not massively longer, okay? But saying all that, you know, the seller was unreasonable, guys. 2 months in, just 2 months in, they already were starting with their nonsense, okay? So they started writing to the agent. So just to give you the background, you probably know this already, but in case you don't, when a property is being sold, you have the buyer, in this case me, you have the seller, you have the agent, the estate agent, who's a person that the seller has paid to list, market, and sell the property. Then you have solicitors. So I've got my solicitors, they've got their solicitors, and those solicitors are supposed to talk to each other throughout the transaction, throughout the process. In theory, I'm supposed to have nothing to do with it apart from here and there if the solicitor needs anything from me, and the seller's not supposed to have anything to do with it. But 2 months in, guys, you already had the seller writing to the agent saying, this is taking too long. It's taking too long. What's happening? I need updates. I need updates on how long the sale is going to take. And they're already, you know, really early on putting pressure on the agent. And the agent is being paid by the seller. So they need to basically do their job, do what they're told, really. So they started writing to me. The agent started getting in contact with me 2 months into the process, like, oh, how's it going? I was like, I don't have any updates for you. You're an estate agent. Tell me the last time you sold a property in 2 months. Oh, wait, it doesn't happen. It never happens that way. Even with cash purchases, it never happens that way. So it was 2 months in, so I was pretty gracious. I was like, even though I was a bit weird, I was like, oh yeah, it's fine. So, you know, the conveyancer, my solicitors are going through the process. They're waiting on the valuation to be done, which will confirm the mortgage offer. In the meantime, they're doing their searches, so their title searches, their environmental searches, all of that good stuff. I was like, everything is on track. It's fine. I'll let you know when I have a more meaningful update. A couple of weeks later, the sellers just got in contact again. Are there any updates? No real updates further to the one that I sent you 2 weeks ago. The title searches are still going on. Still waiting on the valuation to be done. I think it's just completed. I'll let you know when there is a more meaningful update. Now, between 3 and 4 months in, the seller started to get more aggressive with the agent, and the agent was obviously relaying those messages to me. So then I started to hear stuff along the lines of, oh, it's taking a bit long. Is there an issue with the purchase of this property? No issue. Properties don't get sold in 3 months, maybe 4 months. You know, that's about the average, but you know, it could take longer. I know that there's a backlog on the desks of solicitors at the moment. And then I started saying to the agent, as the agent, you know all this already. You know better than I do. So, you know, have a word with the seller and manage them a bit better. But don't really have the capacity to be given updates to you every other week. So they started asking actually for updates on a weekly basis from me. And in error, you know, in my naivete, I agreed to doing that. I wanted to be nice. I really wanted to facilitate the process. Like, I want to buy the property, you want to sell it. We're both on the same page. Let's work together. Let's both be patient. Let's go through the process. There's no issues. But, you know, I wanted it to be all amicable. So I was okay with doing that to begin with. But it just carried on. And, you know, got to the point where, you know, 2-3 weeks in a row, there was no update. That's just how solicitors work when it comes to selling and buying properties. Sometimes there is no update for a few weeks. And I know it can be frustrating. You know, I've bought several houses now. When I include my own one and the one that didn't go through, I think I've done this like 5-6 times now, right? But there's no special treatment. Nobody's special, okay, in this process. Everybody has to go through the process. And by the way, the whole process is for my protection and their protection as well. I think that's a key thing, right? Solicitors have got to do their job and do their work and take the time that they need to ensure that it's a legit transaction, that I'm buying a property that legally the seller has a right to sell. It's not no dodgy transaction. It's not a money laundering thing. And it's protecting the seller to ensure that I'm buying it in a legitimate way, that I'm not, you know, using the proceeds of criminal funds and further down the line the property gets repossessed and the transaction gets voided. All of that, it needs to be done right. So then we got to like 4 months-ish, four plus months, and then I started getting like some quite, you know, arsey messages via the estate agent from the seller. Look, this is taking too long. We're gonna have to start talking about pulling out of the transaction now, okay? I'm like, what are you insane? 4 months in, we're literally towards the end of the process. I said it took 6 months, so you know, it was 8 weeks away at that point, and I'm getting messages saying we're going to start looking at potentially pulling out of the transaction. And I was like, okay, what do I do here? Because it put me, you know, at the time I was like, oh, they might actually do this, because they've been doing this since 2 months into the transaction, and they've just been relentless, right? And I got on the phone to the estate agent, and I had to have like a real firm but, you know, cordial conversation. I was like, look, you know, and I know that transactions, property purchases, sales, the average is about 4 months. You know and I know, because I'm sure you have a portfolio of many other properties that your company are dealing with that are being sold and purchased at this moment in time. So you know that this is the same across the board. So please manage your client better, just in terms of the constant chasing, because it was actually beginning to annoy me and stress me out, and it was taking up just my energy and my thoughts, yeah. And I was just like, this has got to stop. So I said to them, I got to a point where I said, look, From this point onwards, do not contact me anymore about this transaction. First of all, it's not even my job to be giving updates. That's not how a transaction normally works. I've been doing it up until now because I want to be helpful, but you know, the buyer's really taking the okay? So I'm not answering any more questions or giving any more updates. Go directly to my solicitor, okay? And my solicitor will update the seller's solicitor, and that's how this will get resolved. And that's how this process is going to work its way out from here onwards. I'm not answering anymore, right? And the agent knew that that was perfectly legit, and they was like, oh, you know, they just really want to sell. They're paying 2 mortgages. The seller's boyfriend is calling the office now as well. And I was like, that's not my problem. I don't care. And I was like, furthermore, the seller's boyfriend doesn't even own the property. It was an individual who was a lady. And you know, she'd moved obviously with her boyfriend to a new property, but for some reason her boyfriend was getting involved, calling the estate agent's office saying it's taking too long, making all these demands. So anyway, after that, a few more weeks rolled on, so probably about, I feel about like 2-3 weeks away from, you know, when the transaction actually completed. And then I get an email from the estate agent again. Even though I said do not contact me anymore, they said, okay, we need to inform you that the seller is giving you a deadline of next week, Wednesday, to complete this, otherwise they are pulling out. I read the email and I was like, okay, they've actually given a deadline. I didn't respond though, as I said, I'm not responding. I called my solicitor and I said, hey, look, the estate agent has just sent me this email, deadline next week, Wednesday. Has this been communicated to you via their solicitor? They said, no, it hasn't. So it was basically the seller and or her boyfriend basically trying to pressure me via the estate agent by giving this fake deadline that they hadn't communicated to their solicitor. It was just more pressure tactics, right? So I was just like, oh, I'm so fed up of this. So I basically just ignored it, and I said to my solicitor, crack on. And I said, however long it takes, it takes. If they want to pull out, that's fine. I can always just buy another property. And in that scenario, I'm fine. I'll buy another property just a bit later than I planned for. They've got to start their whole process again and maybe take another 6 months to sell the property and pay their mortgage for another 6 months. And that was basically the nature of the transaction from about month 2 to month 6, so for 4 months. Long, guys. I mean, long. I've never dealt with a more irritating, stressful person to do business with. So what have I learned, right? First and foremost, guys, and frame this right, whenever you're buying or selling a property, only deal via your solicitor. So if you get any messages from an agent from the beginning, and I'm going to be doing this from now forevermore, I don't have any updates for you. Seller is going to have to go through their solicitor. I'm not giving you it. I'm just going to refuse to do that from now on, because I've learned the hard way, guys. It's just not worth it. It's a headache, okay? That being said, guys, it's a good idea to, I don't know a better word to use, but to chase your solicitors every 2-3 weeks just to get updates on where they're at. Because if I'm going to be completely honest, I do think that my solicitor probably could have done it a month or 2 sooner. And there were times where I'd call them and ask for an update, and they'd say conveniently, oh yeah, I was just about to do that today. And I was like, you was about to do that today the last time I called you, and the last time I called you. So I reckon about a month could have been shaved off of the processing time. So it's a good idea just to keep a steady, light, friendly amount of pressure, gentle pressure on your solicitor. Because if you just leave them to it, not all solicitors are created equally, and not all solicitors are proactive. So I think that's a good idea, okay? To keep a gentle amount of steady pressure on your solicitor when it comes to property purchases. And guys, I like to give you guys an idea of the returns that I make off of my property investments. That's the reason why I invest. That's the reason why most people invest. So here is yet another spreadsheet. You know I love a good spreadsheet. It gives you a breakdown of what I spent and the returns that I'm getting from this property in whole. So the property, as I mentioned earlier, I bought it for 92,500 and LTV of 75%. So the mortgage that I needed was £69,375. mortgage term of 25 years, square foot, 606 square foot. It's a 2-bed terraced house. So that works out £153 per square foot. And the rent that's being rented for and agreed at is $595 per month. Mortgage interest rate is 4.69%. In terms of what I spent to buy it, the deposit at 25% was £23,125. Stamp duty was £2,775. The legal fees, £1,460, 580 on broker fees, title insurance for £100, and some other incidental stuff like printing, postage, independent legal advice, etc. So in total, I spent £28,220. That was the money in on this investment, this property investment. So when we're talking about what the return is, the annual income, the gross income is going to be £7,140. So that's basically 595 times 12 months of the year. I'm getting that rent. Management fee. So I found a letting agent who charged 9% of the gross rental to manage it. That's £643 per year. Annual insurance, £28 per month, that's £336 per year. The mortgage at 4.69% is £3,254 per year, and you got the maintenance there. So the net profit after all of the costs per year is £2,789. Gross yield and net yield, you know, they're good for comparing one property to the other, but a true reflection of your return, of returns that I like to use, is a return on capital employed, which is basically your net profit, so that £2,789 per year, which is the money you get in your pocket after you've paid all of the various operating and finance costs, over divided by what you actually put in, which is £288,220. So 9.9%, basically 10%. I aim now for a return of 9% or above. All of my properties within my portfolio are 9% or above, and that is the benchmark that I work to. And if you found that helpful, you know, go back, guys, and take a screenshot of this spreadsheet and these tables and do something similar when it comes to assessing your own deals, because it's really useful to do this to make sure that you're not just, you know, pouring your money down the drain on investments that don't give you a suitable return. So that is a summary of everything that's happened in Hull. Let's now switch and talk about what happened in Manchester. So let's take a trip to the other side of the northwest, and talk about what's been happening in Manchester, my property in Manchester. Just to catch you up the background on where I'm at now, where I came from with my property in Manchester. So January last year, the refurb completed. I actually purchased this property at auction back end of 2022 now, okay? Purchased at auction, and I was using the BRRR, that's buy, refurbish, refinance. Buy, refurbish, rent, refinance. I always get it wrong. So I refurbed it. The refurb finished beginning of this year in January, and they handed it over to me. Box fresh, everything was new. And whilst I was looking for a tenant, so I handed it over to the letting agent. And whilst I was looking for a tenant, whilst it was empty, some damp patches started to appear in the hallway and in the living room, okay? And what it looked like was basically patches on the wall that were wet to the touch. So the letting agent said to me, okay, let's get a handyman round to take a look at this, because it's obviously an issue. You can't let out a property with damp in the rooms, in the hallway and the living room. So handyman came in and he had a look and he said, hey, look, I think this is down to blocked guttering, okay? The guttering that drains off, that comes, you know, as water comes off of the roof, it goes into guttering and it gets drained away. So handyman said, this is it. So he said, let me unblock the guttering and then give the walls time to dry, and that should clear the issue. So cleared the guttering and the issue went away. Moved my tenants in February last year. Everything was fine for a good, 6 months until August. And then an email comes with some horrible pics, guys. Horrible pics. There was damp in the hallway, in the living room, in the dining room, hallway stairs. Letting agent said we need to do a damp survey because it's come back and it's in more places, it's everywhere. So damp survey came back and they found rising damp, which is basically where water penetrates the outside bricks and causes them to spald, which is basically to crumble away and rises upwards. Also had penetrating damp, okay, where water once again comes in from the outside to the inside, so the walls are wet to the touch on the inside, and condensation because there was elevated readings of moisture in various rooms of the house. So I was like, crap, this is not good. So they did all of that, and they're very thorough in their investigations, and they quoted for treating the rising damp at the back of the house. Basically, they were going to treat the bricks, install basically a damp-proof course, which is about 1 or 2 feet of specialized replacement bricks that are treated with a substance that prevents them from holding water over the long term, so they stay dry, okay, whereas before they were just absorbing moisture and spalding and crumbling, okay. They also were going to paint those bricks with a special coating called Storm Dry and Sikaflex, which again, you know, is waterproof or prevents them from holding moisture. And then on the inside, where the penetrated damp had come in the various rooms, they needed to remove the plaster on those walls because it'd come all the way through the bricks and the plaster, and they call that tanking. Then the bricks behind the plasterboard were going to be injected with damp-proof substance once again. They was going to apply a waterproof membrane and then put on new plasterboard and replaster. That came to £4,200, guys. And I made a video on that back end of last year, so you can watch that for more details. So that was August, and I was like, hey, wow, that was a big hit, man. I didn't need that hit, but luckily I'd been saving over the years. I'd kept a fund for repairs and maintenance. Came to November, and then I get another email, okay? And I'm just reading the email verbatim. It said that damp contractors returned to the property to investigate the work that they did back in August, and they were hopeful that when they did the original damp survey that it was just condensation that would dry up. However, it appears that it was a mix of rising damp and condensation, and they noticed that the hallway on the opposite side to where they treated previously was still wet. The total area was 2.5 square meters, not very big, but it requires tanking as well, and that's where they take off the plasterboard, the plaster, and go to the bricks, treat it, and then do the replastering all over again. Cost of this is £500, and they also observed that the kitchen would be a good idea to install a fan in the kitchen. The kitchen is on the ground floor where the dining room, reception room and hallway are, where the majority of the damp had occurred. So it was a good idea to install a fan in the kitchen, £550. So basically an extra £1,000 to treat hopefully the last of this issue as it relates to damp. Horrible issue, guys. What have I learned from this? Okay, so what I've learned is that a survey is key when you're buying a property. And I've explained why I didn't get a survey on this property. The reason why I didn't is because I bought this property at auction. And in order to do a survey, a full proper survey of a home takes 2 hours upwards. Now, with an auction property, they only give you slots of half an hour to view the property and to do anything, right? So even if you wanted to get a survey done and you was interested in buying it at auction, they're only going to give you half an hour for that. So you can't do a survey basically. And that is part of the risk of buying a property at auction. There's always a risk that you're going to find stuff that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on in the space of a half an hour viewing, okay? So does that mean I would never buy at auction again? No, but I would probably lean more towards properties that are newer. I'd probably take a builder or a handyman with me. Not that a builder or a handyman are experts at spotting stuff like damp and condensation, etc. But I would take some sort of tradesman with me, okay, to be able to spot this stuff that I, obviously being new as my first ever auction property purchase, that, you know, I'm not an expert. I wasn't adept then at spotting this stuff. I've learned to spot it on the outside. I know what spalding looks like now. I know what damp smells like now. I know where to look, but I'm still not an expert. So I would take a professional with me if I was going to buy at auction again. But I can't see myself personally, and I never say never, but I'm not looking to buy at auction anytime soon. So I'm, as I have done recently, my property in Hull, looking to buy properties on the open market where I can get in and do a survey, all that good stuff. And my key learning is to get a survey done, not a valuation. A valuation is good, that needs to be done as well. Not just a valuation, should I say, but a survey done, because that gives you a report on the condition of the house and would, hopefully, you'd expect it to pick up on stuff like that. And then also my other key learning, guys, is to put aside money monthly for repairs in a reserve fund. You know, that saved my life in this scenario, and it will do again at some point in the future. Okay, this is part and parcel of owning property, of being in property investing. You're always going to have repairs and maintenance, sometimes more expensive, more significant, more comprehensive than others. You know, up until now, my repairs have been like, you know, fixing an intercom, plumbing issues around like the toilet and dishwashers. That's really it, you know, and each time less than £200, relatively cheap to fix. And then all of a sudden £5,200, you know. You can't really plan or legislate for these, you know, in terms of when and what appears. All you can do is just be ready when they do. So guys, that is an update on Manchester. Pray for me that there are no other issues with this property. I really think, well, I don't think, I believe, I know the true return on this property has come from the refurb that I did. Made just under 25k from the refurb using the BRRRR method. The return in terms of rent has been eaten up, okay? It's been eaten up by these repairs as it relates to damp. I think going forwards, I will see that return, a healthy return. But, you know, thankfully, the strategy that I chose has meant that the return that I've gotten has come from the refurb and raising the value of the house, rather than me solely relying on the rent, which has been eaten up in the last 12 months. So lastly, guys, let's talk about my shifting perspective as it relates to investing in property, because I've been on a journey this year in terms of how I view property, what I want out of it, what my goals are. So I'm just sharing this because I feel to, guys. I've always seen property as, well, not always, but you know, since I started doing it, so we're talking 2018, I've seen it as, I always thought it would be a way out of my job. I've always thought that I would eventually transition fully into property full time and just do that going forwards. Once I get to a certain level where the income is, you know, paying for my living expenses, family expenses, all of that stuff, right? And you know, beyond that, also having money to live off and do what I want with, you know, luxury play money. So that's what I saw as the future for me. I think this year, or last year, coming into this year, has changed my thinking on that as it relates to property and buy-to-let investing. Okay, I still want that to happen, right? I still want to have property as my main source of income and to pay for my life and my living and my lifestyle, my family's lifestyle. But where I've shifted is, do I just want to do that? Do I actually want to come out of work altogether? I think I've shifted more towards, I want the option of coming out of work together. Because if I'm honest, right, if I'm totally honest, property is great, but once you've done the deal, you've done the research, and then it's in your portfolio, there's not a lot else to do until you're basically looking for the next one. Okay, so unless you've got funds coming in all the time, talking tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds to be constantly looking for the next deal, you're going to have periods in between your next purchase where you're not doing a lot. So I still want to have something that stimulates me, challenges me, keeps me active, keeps me thinking, using my brain, problem solving, stuff that I enjoy beyond just property and the next deal. So do I want to come out of work? Yeah, I want the option to. Maybe it's the case where I want to do property and have that, you know, supporting my lifestyle, but doing other stuff. So I'd love to do stuff like maybe even go back into a bit of education. I know that's a controversial thing to say, but I'd love to do stuff like learn a language. I'd love to do maybe like a qualification, a degree, or a study in something that I'm really interested in. Like, I'm a history nerd, so something like anthropology, theology. I want to be more involved in, you know, ministry. I go to church. I'm really active and have been active over the years in my church there, but I'd also like to do something that's more like community focused. So outreach into the community, helping people around me, that kind of stuff. So I'm just saying it out loud on here. Maybe I'll come back to this in a year or two and see where I'm at with it. But that's how my perspective has changed as it relates to property and the plan in terms of work and a vocation, a passion, a reason for being. Okay, I'm getting all theological and philosophical here. So I'll end it there, guys. Thank you for continuing to support this channel over the last few months. I'll say it again. I love doing this. I was always going to come back. It was just a question of when I had the capacity and the time and the space to. Here I am. I'm back. Guys, please continue to support me as you have been. Share this channel with somebody else that you think might benefit from it. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one.